Hello, everyone. This is the Velero community meeting. Today is March the 16th. I'm going to share my screen so we can take a look at the notes. There we go. And I am up first. Look at that table. Check it out. So I have reviewed some PRs. They were all release blockers. There was a small PR to update the upgrade documentation for 1.6 that's coming up. I have a couple small PRs open. I mean, one PR open, but that's not release blocker. So it's going to sit there for a while until we finish this release, at least the release candidates. The PRs for getting the plugins ready for release, they are merged. So that's what I'm going to do next after this meeting is push a tag so the images can be built and I can run a test. And yeah, I had a meeting about Carvel last week. So next for me is testing the plugins with the RC that Bridges is about to release, or maybe even just the main branch, and get through some PR reviews, and also get myself organized for the V17, all the tests that I have to do. I just want to make sure everything's cut out and at least get started with that process. That's it for me. Anybody has a question? No? Okay, so Bridget, you're on.
Hi everyone. I don't have a fancy table to lay out everything I did. That's a nice idea, carlisia. I like it. So in the last week, I have been mostly focusing on finishing up any work that we need to do in order to get a 1.6 release candidate out. So as part of that, all the multiple credentials works finally merged. Thank you very much, everyone, for the reviews and feedback there. That's been really helpful. So with that work got merged with ET tests, and then I've been working on some of the 1.6 release blockers. I am currently writing up a set of test cases that we need to take the release candidate through. Like Carlisia mentioned, once we're ready to go, I will get a release candidate created from the main branch, and we'll go through that process again. So I go through the process of creating a release. Yep, that's it for me. Any questions or comments? Okay, it's all quiet, so I'll hand it over to you, Dave.
Okay. So we're all concentrating on getting the 1.6 release out. So I've got a PR in where we have ED tests with volume snapshots, and that will give us some better testing. So right now we're doing restic. We'll test the volume snapshots as well. That'll let us exercise all the plugins, and we'll need to set up the test so that we run with the multiple credentials as well. So Bridget added stuff in so that we can test the multiple credentials, so we can maybe try a few different permutations there. Once we have the basic ETE tests running and passing against AWS and vSphere, there's currently no outstanding bugs we know of that are release blockers. Then we'll go ahead and we'll cut the release candidate, and then we'll run the release candidate through additional testing. If we find any bugs or stuff, we'll make a decision then whether or not those are showstoppers, and we may or may not go back and cut another release candidate. And we're going to test with our latest and earliest Kubernetes supported versions. Don't ask me what those are. I have to look those up. And we'll do that against Azure, AWS, the local kind clusters, vSphere, and Google Cloud. And as Bridget mentioned, she's going through the manual checklist of things we'll perform against those as well. So that's it for me.
Alrighty, so let's see. That's all the status updates, discussion topics. I just wanted to give a shout out to Eleanor. She's on the call. She officially starts this week. Hello.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I am ramping up like crazy and will be for the next 2 weeks, but I'm very excited to join the team and help contribute.
Yeah, we're excited too. Thank you. Question for the team. Should we have, I think the answer to this is yes. Should we have E3 tests for Velero upgrades? Yeah, we don't have that, right? It just mostly I wanted to check we don't have it.
No, and that should be relatively easy to add since we can specify which version of Velero we use when the tests install. So we could have a upgrade version and we could have an upgrade test. But yeah, if we don't have a PR or we don't have a issue for that, would you put one in? Because that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I think I'll tackle that.
Okay.
Is that okay or?
Yeah, I mean, put in an issue so we know it's there, and we can look at how to implement it. It should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, because I have to do this test, and I'm like, oh, I wish there was a test. I wish
that's...
it was automated.
See, when you start saying, "I wish I could automate," and I'm going to write code, that's the best. That's the best.
Absolutely, I love these tests. By the way, I think they are underrated. It is definitely such a good thing to have in the project.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we want to be to the point where all the stuff that we test by hand, if at all possible, it's automated, because then it's so much easier.
Absolutely. So moving on to contributor shout outs, we have Frankie on the call here, and she did a great job fixing the bug that was introduced.
That was fun. That was fun.
I'm sure he had to go through a lot of codes to pick out what needed to be put back. Basically, there was a PR that removed some codes that Frankie put in, and she put it back basically. And it had to do with the API group versioning. And when that code was removed, it started breaking tests. Yay for tests!
Yes, we wouldn't have known if it weren't for those tests failing. And I automatically just blame myself why the tests are failing. And that's why it took so long to find the bug. It took a week to find this bug because I kept thinking there was something wrong with the tests. But it was actually, it served exactly what a test should have done. It should have failed.
Yeah. That was fantastic. And these are the tests we're talking about is the E2E test that caught that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's easy for things to slip in. And so we're going to start doing things like having pull requests need to pass the EDE test before they get accepted.
You know, it was kind of optional for me to do an end-to-end test for the API group versions. I'm really glad I took that option. It took a lot of time. I think it was like 5 times more difficult than the code itself.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a headache, but totally worth it. So I would recommend other people to go through this pain and suffering that I went through.
Yeah, I think we'll start requiring that as we go along.
Okay, good.
And
yes.
so forth. You know, baby steps. We're moving, so it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there were no contributions on our Velero community support Q&A forum, but we do have unanswered questions. So if people feel compelled, jump in and help you out. And that must have been the shortest meeting we've ever had.
Oh, nice. I like short meetings.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the, I'm sorry I go late.
No, it's all right.
I want to talk a little bit about the versioning for plugin, the Velero plugin. Right? So one of my design was stuck because of that. Because basically when we have the Velero plugin. We have multiple version of it, and it have multiple API. We need a way to control versioning on it. And I saw there is somebody else also interested in that topic of creative versioning. I think Nolan have started a conversation about that. I wonder if we should have like a separate meeting to discuss the design of Velero plugin versioning on that, or should we discuss it here? Or what do you guys think?
So we're currently going through some design work. Bridget, myself, Ashish are all looking at that. It's on the roadmap as one of the must-have things. And so once we get through this week and get all the 1.6 stuff nailed down, we can come back to that. So
Okay,
we'll bring you
please.
in
Yeah,
as we go along.
Okay, please loop me in on that topic, because that's also I also need that for the enhance the Velero plugin with the contacts and timeout. Right? Thank you very much.
And just to jump in on that as well, I don't have a lot of feedback necessarily on the version design itself, but I will want to be involved because I have a feature as well that's kind of waiting on that, because the wait for additional items to be ready is another change to the plugin API. So we really can't get that upstream until we have the versioning.
Okay, I'd like for these kind of things to be submitted for the roadmap so that we know that they're going in. So we can put that into 1.7, but it's not on the roadmap right now. So please, let us know that you'd like to get something in.
Yeah. Okay. And I, by the way, I do have an open PR. I had a design for this that was approved. That didn't at that point did not involve plugin changes, but I realized, and I talked to Nolan about this, that we actually do need to change the plugin. So I have a PR open on the design update. So I don't have, so the design is not approved yet in terms of the change, but once that's in, I definitely, that's something that, again, would need to go in after plugin versioning. So kind of going to post either during the 1.7 process or post 1.7, depending on when the versioning hits.
Yeah, hopefully versioning, well, our plan is to get versioning in early in 1.7, so because there's a number of things
Got it
that are dependent on it.
Okay.
But I'd like to get your stuff on the roadmap so that we know to expect it.
Okay. Yep.
And are you all done? All right, so just a clean up kind of thing. I was looking at the V7 project boards and I saw some PRs in there, and PRs should not be in the boards. I don't know if it's the automated system that's adding them. So I'm gonna clean that up. Just remove the PRs and make sure the corresponding issues are in there if they are for 1.7. So if you are looking at that and you see a PR disappear, it's just me cleaning things up. Because if we have the PR and the issue, I mean, we definitely need the issue. So we don't want the PR because then we have duplicates of everything and it gets messy. So yeah, we just need to make sure that everything we are working on has an issue so we can track on the board. At least some of us are tracking it on the board.
The project board, the 1.7,
the GitHub project board.
Yeah, I just put the PRs on there because those are things that have to get done.
But it should be the issue.
But it's there so we know what people are working on and what's currently moving.
Yeah, it should be the issue.
The PR.
Do you want to have both the issue and the PR?
Sure. Because somebody's got to work on.
I mean, not all of us want that, Dave.
So I'm confused about which, so there's the project board, but then there's also the milestone as well. Sorry, I'm just looking at the current project V1. I'm looking at the 1.6 board that we currently have, and we do have columns for review in progress and review approved. I'm confused about where all those things come from, if they're explicitly added, and if you create a PR that's linked to an issue, does it automatically get added? Because some of them seem to be managed by automation, and I don't know.
Yes, I was going to look at that to get clarity on that too. I think they froze. So there is a GitHub automation that adds, I think that's what I don't know, if it's both issues in PR, if you tag the milestone for that, as 1.7, it will go to 1.7 boards. So basically, if that's what it is, we have to go to clean up the way I was talking about. You go on a PR, remove the issue. There is a boards thing on the GitHub page. I don't know how to describe it. You know what I'm talking about? So that lists there's a boards field.
Yeah.
So you just clear that milestone from the board field for that PR.
Yeah, I was just going to say, given that you're sharing your screen, could you like show us like on GitHub? Just that might be easier.
Yes. Oh, let me go to the project boards. So there, yeah, we shouldn't have, in my opinion, we shouldn't have be tracking both PRs and issues. So these PRs, what should be here are the issues that correspond to these PRs. And let me move things out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. All right. So this PR is appearing on the boards because right here on the right, do you see my mouse? This project field. We can just, I'm not clear on how to clean this up.
Yeah, so I was looking at like the 1.6 board, and we have like a separate column for like review in progress and review approved.
Yeah, that is however no one wants to do it. We can talk about that. Yeah, it's just so Dave, we're talking about we shouldn't be tracking, in my opinion, both PRs and issues. And
so by the time the PRs are submitted, basically somebody needs to be doing reviews, and we're getting pretty close down to the end of the release. And I put them in there because I was tracking the release, and that was how I was tracking them. So let's
maybe we should talk
make sure
about
everything
it.
gets done.
Huh?
Let's make sure everything gets done, but there shouldn't be that many outstanding issues at this point, or PRs.
Yeah, so you're talking about 1.6. That's for sure. That's correct.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure everything gets done, and we aren't letting anything slip between the cracks at the end here.
Yeah. Maybe we should have like a column for just PRs, like this one, review in progress.
We can do that.
Know, huh?
We can do that. We can just move them there.
Yeah, there's a lot we can do. So there are the good thing is that there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of options. So for example, we could have a column here for just whatever is corresponding to the version. So we know we know what to prioritize.
What do you mean? What's for the version?
Well, because we are looking at 4.6, right? But there is 1.7. Yes. So like right now we don't have a PR. So we don't have a PR review column like we have here.
Mm-hmm.
So we could add that column. I don't want to do it because Lona, looking at this, you know what I mean? We could have a in review column here just for PRs.
Yeah, we can do that.
So every PR that is supposed to go in 1.7, and I'm talking like more generically, like for any release, we could have that column, so we can track. These are the PRs that are going into this release, and prioritize those. Of course, there has to be some grooming that goes through the PRs and make sure that right. There has to be a grooming. So
that's what I did last week. Was I went through and groomed the whole thing and tried to move everything out that wasn't going to make it into the release.
All right. So with that in mind, I'm not going to do anything because it's not clear what we should do. It's not clear for me right now what we should do for 1.7.
Yeah, we'll figure out 1.7 next week. Let's get 1.6 done.
Yeah. Is that it?
I saw something in chat from Rahul.
Hi, Dev. So I'm just wondering if time permits, can we discuss about the challenges associated with running multiple snapshot operations in Velero? We did have a brief chat about it earlier, I remember, and we discussed about some challenges associated with perhaps quicing the same applications at the same time if we run concurrent snapshot. Was that is that the only challenge, or there are anything additional to that?
Well, we're going to have to go back. So the plugins have basically been written to work in the environment they work in, and the current environment is essentially single-threaded. So we'd have to go through and do quite a bit of testing against the existing plugins, all those to make sure that it works, or have them export something like a flag that says that they support concurrency. And we have to understand what the limits of concurrency are on the various storage systems. So, like, how many outstanding snapshots can we issue, simultaneously? So we'd have to figure that out.
Okay, so the plugins, I understand that the plugins are getting spinned up in a different process, and they are not they don't support concurrent operations. That is,
well,
the
they might, but we
we need to
never used
enable
them in
and
that
test.
way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And once Velero starts supporting CSI based snapshots, it will basically replace the need of it will basically I mean, the native snapshots mechanism might become redundant, right? And in that case, are we going to have the plugins running in a different process, because things will be pretty much in tree, right, within Velero server?
Yes and no, because there's going to be other things. So CSI snapshotting only gives us volume snapshotting, which is good, but that's not what we're stopping at. So after that, we'll have other snapshotting mechanisms. We want to start bringing things up the tree where we can start snapshotting applications and have the application respond to a snapshot request if it supports that. So the reason for having the plugins run in a different process is it's Go. So if we were doing like Java lets you, import jars fairly easily, and there's mechanisms there for handling the different, or even just doing it at runtime. And Go doesn't do that very well, so that's why they're running as separate gRPC processes. So I think we will see, like with CSI, probably for simplicity, we're going to keep the plugins. We're looking at splitting into two classes of plugins. So one are the kind of things which are internal to Velero and the Kubernetes serializer. Those are going to be things that, for example, change a tag, add an annotation, manipulate things on restore to make things, make the resources fit. And then there's going to be things that are more like snapshotty things. So things like snapshotting a volume, or snapshotting a Kubernetes cluster eventually. And we're going to leave those external. And that will also, we're going to start opening up the API so it's not just callable from within Velero, but this actually becomes a piece of infrastructure that we can then share with our partners. So that's on the roadmap. We're trying to figure all that out.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are the goals. And certainly concurrency in snapshot operations are important. We'd probably have to do things like, I guess right now, the quiesce hooks are on a per pod basis. So if there's an execution hook involved, we'd have to do, like, we shouldn't snapshot items from a pod where the execution hook hasn't been executed yet, if there's an execution hook for the pod. Otherwise, we could kind of do them in parallel. So I think we need to look at it because it's relatively, there's a lot of room for complexity there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I couldn't follow quite on the Java versus Golang part about plugins having different process. I plugins can be imported as packages into as entry implementation as well. Right?
We'd have to compile them in.
Yeah, so runtime you cannot deploy any additional plugin. That's the limitation, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I was coming to. If you start supporting CSI based mechanism, and there is no native way, right? I mean,
that's only going to be true for volumes. So we're going to start doing other snapshot type things.
For applications you mentioned, right? Again, coming back to applications, I believe that has to be translated into what kind of volumes the application involves. And
no,
again,
no, it's not going to. We're going to be able to tell the application, snapshot yourself. And it may do something completely different than snapshotting volumes. It may, for example, dump out, like we have a POC for Postgres, where it dumps out, it does a PG dump. Right. So if you look at what people have done in other systems, or like Cassandra, has its own backup utilities, we want to start triggering those rather than just doing volume snapshots, because the volume snapshot stuff is
something
pretty
like
primitive.
Okay. Yeah, something like the VSS, Microsoft VSS does, right? It has the awareness how to quiesce the application.
It's more than quiescing.
Yeah, it's only quiescing, and this will also involve snapshotting, I believe, right?
Well, what we want is we want the application to start doing the right thing for the application, rather than trying to guess at what the right thing is by like snapshotting volumes. So we'll keep the snapshotting volumes is going to be like the basic fallback mechanism. So that one usually works, but it may not be doing the best backup, or one that allows us to do the right things. So for example, say we have like a Cassandra running with multi-way replication. So each of its disks is already replicated 3 ways. Now you snap all of them and you back all of them up, you're not actually gaining anything.
Yeah.
Right. So we would like to have the application, and Cassandra actually has a backup and restore application that is, that is consistent at the application level, and we don't need to quiesce it. We can say, hey, go snapshot yourself, and it may be able to do that without stopping the world. So that's what we want to be able to do.
Right. So some kind of application plugin which understands the application topology and knows how to protect it.
Well, ideally, the
way,
applications start to export, like the operators start to export APIs where we can talk that we can talk to. So that's our long-term goal.
And I believe there is some initiative under data protection work group as well to represent application using some Kubernetes constructs. Is this somewhat related, all these things that we are discussing?
Yeah, so there's the Kubernetes app. There's like an app CRD, and we'll take advantage of that, but I don't know that everybody's, so we can start to build things around that. I want to take this problem in, so we can build something around the app CRD, we will, but I expect to see applications actually exporting their own snapshot APIs, because even building something around the app CRD, you're kind of guessing at what the application does, right? You start looking at it, you go, okay, well, I can call this quiesce hook. So, excuse me, I'll call the quiesce hook, and then I'll snap all the volumes, but you don't really want to snap all the volumes all the time. So for the time being, I mean, we don't really see I don't think bringing the plugins into the Velero process is really going to give us much. I mean, what are you thinking?
Are you muted?
Maybe Rahul's machine crashed on him like mine did.
Happens. Right. I think we can move along and maybe continue the discussion over in Slack.
All right. This is the end of today's meeting. It was great being here with you all, and logging off. Have a great
Take
day,
care.
everybody.
Bye.
See ya.